let's cut straight to the nitty-gritty. That our lack of a striker is really starting to cost us now. I don't blame anybody at the club, never mind David Moyes, for selling Sebastian Haller, because I must be perfectly honest, I don't feel that had we still had Sebastian Haller and he played in that game today, that we would have seen much different. I mean, just take Yarmolenko out of that team and then put Sebastian Haller in there. He's still going to be isolated. He's still going to be lacking in movement. And certainly when you look at the composition of the midfield, there's nobody really that was going to get close to him. Fornals had a job to do, let's say. Well, that's great. Fornals can do that job, but he didn't get forward with any sort of sparkle at all. And he's just not a wide player. He's not pacey enough. He's not tricky enough. He's not really in a position where he can impact the game at all. He's there to provide cover for Cresswell. By the time Cresswell moved to left centre-back, there wasn't really any point in him being on the pitch at all. I think in the short time that Ben Johnson was on the pitch, he had provided more attacking threat than Fornals had all game. But it's not there to pick on Fornals. It's just my point is that had Sebastian Haller been playing, Fornals wouldn't have got close to him either. I feel as well, bearing in mind Souček wasn't at his attacking best in terms of getting in the box. He was very much playing a central midfield role. You didn't really particularly notice him in the game. And until later on in the second half, when Declan Rice started doing a few driving runs, he ran down the left, did a cross, and obviously got dispossessed for the goal on the right. But in the first half, again, he was just sort of a standard central midfield player. And then you had Noble as well. He had three sort of samey type players in the middle at that point because they weren't doing anything exceptional. Again, wasn't able to get up and get any support to Yarmolenko. Move on to Jared Bowen, who had a terrible game, really. And nobody was getting in support. Nobody was supporting Yarmolenko up there. And that being said, I don't feel that Yarmolenko played a good game. Yarmolenko was really struggling with offside. It's not the first time either. Probably something to do with the fact he's not a striker. At some point, Moyes is going to run out of wide players that he can turn into strikers. And this game was one such instance. The reason I say about Haller is we desperately need a forward player who has lung bursting pace, who runs wide, who runs the channels, can stretch defences, can get in and get the ball in behind, and he's just very, very mobile. Yarmolenko's not that player, neither was Sebastian Haller. So why didn't we get one in January? And I understand what Moyes said. I want to keep the money. So if Moyes has got a number one target, we've discussed who we think it might be. And he's got this 15, 20 million. And maybe we've had contact with the club and the club has said, we don't want to sell him now, but maybe you can come back and you can buy him in the summer. That's fine. I would totally understand why David Moyes would want to keep that money. 100%. Then go and get somebody on loan. You can't tell me that there's nobody out there. I mean, almost anybody, a lone player from any of the French league, the German league, anything at all, just somebody that was a forward, would have been better than what we saw against Manchester United. And we knew this anyway, by the way. It's since been confirmed that Antonio was, they say this, feeling his hamstrings. Not quite going far enough to say he's pulled his hamstring or he has a hamstring injury. A tightening of the hamstring. Well, that sets the alarm bells. That's a big red light going off on top of Antonio's head when that happens. And for that reason, almost anybody aside from what we have is going to have to work. A loan signing just would have been a sensible thing. We didn't do it. Let's hope it doesn't cost us in terms of the league. It's cost us in the cup. I'm sure of that. Manchester United did not fancy that. Did not fancy it at all. Even the players like Greenwood and Fernandes, they had no sparkle when they came on. Reticent to say it was there for the taking, but you know what I mean. We should have tested them more than we did. And I'm just afraid we weren't able to do so. Too much pressure was on Benrahma when he came on then. And then you sort of look at what Moyes is going to do in terms of that striker. You have to assume, well, actually we know, by the way, the news just came through. Yarmolenko has a knee ligament injury. That's it. That's done. That's finished. That experiment can no longer happen. So what's he going to do? The Mipo Adebeko one, I don't really want to talk about too much about. He's a young lad, and I felt terribly sorry for him going off in the way that he did. I just hope he can look to someone like Ben Johnson, who got taken off after 25 minutes and has come back stronger and looked fantastic in this game against Manchester United. Hopefully Ben Johnson can have a word with him and say, look, it's not the end. It's really not. But it is quite clear that we're not going to be able to use Adebeko for the next little while anyway, certainly. So what are we going to do? What's his options? Well, it appears the first one is going to be Bowen. Or is it going to be Lingard? Or is it going to be Ben Rama? Whichever one it is, and I would certainly lean towards the latter two I mentioned there, is going to have to make it work. Because otherwise we are in a bit of trouble. And unless this feeling of the hamstrings is going to sort itself out ahead of Sheffield United. The one benefit that we do have from going out of the Cup, and I hate to say it, I want to be in the Cup, is that we're going to go back to one game a week. And I think we need it. Our squad is top heavy in certain positions and light in others. We know central midfield and striker, we know about these. And I felt very much with central midfield that had again proven to be the case. When Declan Rice lost the ball, he was just absolutely knackered. There's no surprise really that Souček wasn't able to impose himself on the game. That wasn't a great midfield that they were playing against, by the way. And I thought it was quite telling that it was probably just a little bit of running, because Declan Rice did bust a gut once he lost the ball. It's just a little bit of fast running from a fit player that had come off the pitch, come off the bench, shall I say, in Scott McTominay to score the goal. He was fresh. He was fresher. Our midfield looked stale. It looked like a couple of midfielders who have played almost every game this season. Declan Rice played every minute in the Premier League, as I understand it. That looked to be the case. Mark Noble looked like the older statesman of the team. And consequently, it didn't look like they were able to get up and support the forwards, as I've discussed. So we have a thin squad. If we can keep those two central midfielders fit, we'll be absolutely fine from now until the remainder of the season. When I say fine, look, clearly not getting relegated. We've got 39 points already. 39 points is safe. I'd imagine 35 points will probably keep you safe this season. But it's about not settling for mid-table obscurity. It's about, I think, keeping in the mix for European football until 3 or 4 games towards the end. If you can do that, then you give yourselves a real chance. And I think if we keep our central midfielders in place and fit, then we have every chance of that. But the squad is lopsided. We have too many in certain positions and not enough in others. One of the positions where I thought we had too many, thank goodness, is centre half, because that was really unfortunate. I mean, Ogbonna's a massive player for us. It's been said for a long time. I mean, what would happen if we lost Ogbonna and Antonio? Well, I think we're about to find out. All I can say is how it's not fortunate. I was going to say we're fortunate to have Dawson. It's not fortunate. Let's give credit where credit's due. He was targeted, he was selected, and we went and got him. All I can say about Dawson is, even though Ogbonna went off, our defence still looks sound. A Herculean performance from him, really, when you consider he had a couple of fullbacks playing either side of him as his central defensive partners. Obviously, well done to Soufal. Cresswell is used to playing as a left-sided centre half, but Dawson just sort of took it upon himself once Ogbonna went off. It was really quite something to play with sort of 3 or 4 different defensive partners in a game and still look absolutely magnificent. I mean, the man's a beast. We've discussed it before. We'll discuss it again. The transfer has to be made permanent, and if James Tarkowski at 30 million is a better player than Dawson, then maybe we should go and get him. Somehow, I doubt that he is, and I think Dawson is a bargain. At 30 years of age, we should have a few more years left in him, as long as we can make the transfer permanent. Let's hope that we do have a buyout clause. I do have a feeling if we don't, that his price may have risen slightly. But the fact of the matter is, I think for the last 5-6 games, whenever we've done our player ratings, Dawson has always been in the mix for sort of man of the match, and that's magnificent. So I'm a little bit more confident we can handle the loss of Ogbonna for a short period than I am the striker situation. The Ogbonna one is clearer, isn't it? Let's be fair. He's got Dawson next to him, Cresswell the other side. It's a settled back four. Fabianski, who obviously played really well against Manchester United, is there. There's a calming influence. You're dropping one player in there. If it's Diop, I mean, the concussion, you're looking at... It depends how bad the concussion is, really. I'm not, as I mentioned, I'm not sure the concussion rules are being strictly adhered to, but he'll either be back for the next match, if not the one after. If not, you put Ogbonna in there. If not, let's drop this Alves in there. I mean, it's not... It's not. It's silly if we're going to spend 2-3 million on a defender who has from Silkeborg, who's played plenty of professional football. Then surely we ought to be able to drop him in. I'm less concerned about that. The ankle injury though for Ogbonna is a little bit of a worry there. I think this puts extra onus on Lingard as well to come back, because I said that midfield, it looked stale, not just in terms of fatigue, but in terms of ideas. And there was just too much pressure on Benrahma to come on and do something. And I certainly was guilty of that. I think he's such a good player. He's such a skillful player, Benrahma, that you're desperate for him to do something when there's no other magic in the team, which there wasn't for all the players I made, be it Fornals and Noble and Souček and Rice, who at that point wasn't dribbling, and Bowen, and even Fredericks on there as well. I know he's a defender playing an attacking position, but nonetheless, none of those players was sparkling. You're looking at someone like Benrahma, you're thinking, come on, just come and do a little bit of magic. And I think there's a little bit of pressure on him there. However, I want him back in the team. I want him to play all the time. But what it does do, it throws an interesting situation up with the Jesse Lingard situation, because I really liked it when Lingard played in that team against Villa, and Lingard played and dovetailed really well with Antonio and Benrahma. Well, if Antonio's not in the team through injury, then number one, that's going to impact that anyway. Number two, if you take either Benrahma or Lingard and play them up front, then what's then going to happen? Who plays as that extra player? Does that mean Fornal's going to be dropped in? Does that mean Noble's going to start playing more? Look, I think we are a good defensive team. I really do. And I'm not talking about doom and gloom here. Far from it. I think the hardest thing is, in all of this, is because we've progressed so much this season, you want everything now. You know, give it to me now. You know, I've seen the progression of the team, which from last season to this season has been fantastic. To go from relegation candidates to, you know, to knocking on the door of Europe and a top 6 team is magnificent. It really is. And it does make you a little bit greedy. You think, well, hold on, just buy that extra player, loan that extra player, just do something to get us there now. And we know that Moyes is looking at it slightly long term. I'm pretty sure Moyes is looking at all this thinking, well, we ain't done bad this season, but this is a little bit far away from what I see to be, I don't know, the bigger picture that I'm trying to paint for West Ham here. I mentioned it, ironically, didn't I, in yesterday's video, that what's Moyes' plan? What's his idea? Who's he bringing in? Who's he want to ditch? I think he's a long way off his squad. And I mentioned it in the player ratings video on Patreon, which was, you know, Jarrod Bowen's an interesting one. I think Jarrod Bowen is not playing well. And I think Bowen will come back and play well for West Ham again. No worries about that at all. But at the moment, he's not doing so well. And he's got to be a little bit careful, because actually, if Moyes did have the money, then I could see Bowen being a substitute for West Ham at the moment, if there was another option there on that right-hand side who Moyes felt was his own pick. And I think that's really what Moyes is looking towards. Actually, people that he has purchased, like Bowen, actually being on his bench. So when he looks on the bench, he thinks, I want to bring players like that on. It doesn't. Our first 11 is very good. I mean, really, we've shown that we can get really good results. And I think that will continue, that we will still get good results. But I do think he's a little way off. And I think today, it's tomorrow by the time you're watching it. In fact, it's almost tomorrow by the time I'm recording this, actually. I do feel that this has really highlighted our deficiencies in terms of the squad depth. Just one final word as well for Ben Johnson. I'm absolutely delighted for, by the way. We don't have too many two-footed players in the squad at all. And, I mean, he looks able to cross it off of either foot. I think he's looking like someone that's played. It's a funny one, really, isn't it? He looks like someone that's played 10 to 20 games now. I'm not sure exactly how many. I'm pretty sure it falls between that margin, but he's looking more comfortable. You've got to remember, he's played twice against Manchester City. Now he's played against Manchester United as well. I get the feeling that David Moyes is starting to trust him more, that David Moyes is seeing him more of an option. And certainly, if there's one thing, it's probably quite a small thing and something whilst our attention has been on other players, other young players coming through, I think maybe we look at Ben Johnson and I think, actually, this is a solid squad member. Is he going to start every game? No. But I'm pretty sure now he is one of the players I just mentioned that Moyes will look on the bench and think, I know this guy. I trust this guy. I can use him. And I think as a plus point, he's only going to get better and better and better. All in all, disappointed to go out of the cup. This conversation about not covering the striker position is going to run and run. Moyes has got to take this on the chin, I'm afraid. He was happy enough to come out and say, no, it was my decision, which I totally accept. I don't think David Moyes is a liar. I think if he's said it was his decision, he was offered the money and didn't sign anybody, and he's taken it, then he's got to take it on the chin. If the squad fails, and if we tumble down the league, we've already gone out of the cup, then he's got to be honest with himself and hold his hands up and say, okay, look, I got that wrong. I think it's hard for me in terms of fans to think, okay, for that to bear fruit and for that decision to work, I've got to wait all the way until next season. You've got to hope the striker that he does bring in is absolutely brilliant and transforms and metamorphosises the team. Who knows? Disappointing to go out of the cup, though.